Hey everyone, welcome back to The Explainer. I'm your host, Dr. Chem, and today we're diving into a high-stakes, entirely invisible world. A world that, literally, keeps us safe every single time we turn on the tap. We're going to break down the highly precise and frankly fascinating science behind the determination of trace metals using ICP-OES. It all starts with a simple, yet pretty profound question, right? How do we actually know our water is safe to drink? Think about it for a second. Toxic elements can be lurking in our drinking water, in our rivers and lakes, in these incredibly small quantities, totally invisible to the naked eye. If heavy metals and trace elements slip into our surface waters, they easily enter the food chain and, well, that threatens all of us, human and environmental health alike. So how on earth do we catch them before they do any damage? Well, to guard our water supply, environmental labs don't just, guess. They are bound by some incredibly strict analytical rulebooks. The documents you see here, like EPA Method 200.7 and the DIN-EN ISO 11085 guidelines, they dictate exactly how environmental labs have to test for these elements. They're basically the rigorous, gold standard methods that make sure testing is reliable and our water stays safe. But what kind of machine actually pulls off this complex testing? Okay, let's dive into this. Meet the ICP-OES. Now, that stands for Inductively Coupled Plasma Optical Emission Spectroscopy. I know, it's a mouthful, but this technology, it's an absolute game changer. It's an analytical technique that uses an inductively coupled plasma to produce excited atoms and ions. Basically, when these atoms get excited, they emit electromagnetic radiation, which is just a fancy way of saying light, at very specific wavelengths that act like fingerprints for particular elements. By measuring the intensity of that light, we can tell exactly what elements are in the water and exactly how much is there. It's blazing fast and has pretty much entirely replaced those older, slower manual methods for routine multi-element testing. But what's truly mind-blowing here is the sheer, staggering power required to pull this off. 10,000. That is the upper limit in Kelvin of the temperature generated right inside this instrument. The machine sustains a megahertz frequency argon plasma that burns somewhere between 6,000 and 10,000 Kelvin. That is literally hotter than the surface of the sun. This intense, localized heat completely atomizes the liquid samples, which allows the spectrometer to read the light emissions of the elemental building blocks hidden inside. But behind every insanely powerful machine is a human operator. So meet Luke. He's an analyst at Always Right Labs. And Luke kind of represents the thousands of hardworking scientists running these high-tech machines every single day. He meticulously prepares environmental samples, dealing with these tricky mixtures of water and concentrated acids. But even when he follows all the standard quality control practices to a T, Luke still faces immense stress. We're talking failed quality control tests, delayed results, angry clients, and forced to overtime. Why? Well, because these complex machines actually break down a lot more often than you might think. Which brings us to what we can call the remeasurement trap. Industry polling reveals a really startling statistic. On average, laboratories report they have to remeasure 15% of their ICP-OES samples. 15%! That means almost 1 in 6 times something goes wrong during the measurement. Maybe a quality control solution fails, or a hidden error just creeps in, and it forces the analyst to throw out the data and start the whole tedious process all over again. Let's translate that 15% error rate into real-world pain. If a typical lab, like Luke's, is running 250 samples a week, a 15% failure rate means 38 of those samples have to be rerun. Now, since a fast ICP-OES takes about 2.5 minutes per sample, that adds up to 95 minutes of wasted time every single week. Over a year, that equals 82 hours. That is literally more than 2 entire working weeks of human life and expensive laboratory time completely lost to errors. Every single year. The toll of this rework is just massive, both financially and humanely. The obvious costs are the wasted consumables, right? Expensive argon gas, electricity, chemical reagents, plus the wages paid for that mandatory overtime. But the hidden costs? That's a massive, invisible drain on scientific efficiency. The lab misses out on opportunities to run new, revenue-generating samples. The analysts get severely burned out, which leads to staff turnover just from sheer job dissatisfaction. And ultimately, delayed results mean a huge hit to the lab's hard-earned reputation. So what exactly is going wrong under the hood? Well, an ICP-OES is a highly, highly sensitive instrument, and the smallest little imperfections can derail an entire analysis. It usually comes down to instrument-related problems that go totally unnoticed until it's way too late. We're talking about things like invisible fine particles suspended in a liquid sample, maybe slightly incorrect argon gas flows into the plasma, or even just worn-out tubing. Let's look a bit closer at the most common culprits. One of the most common causes of failure is a blocked nebulizer. Now, the nebulizer is the tiny part of the machine that turns the liquid sample into a fine mist, so it can actually enter the plasma. But fine particles, which might be completely invisible in a water sample, can easily block its tiny capillary tube. If an analyst looks at their screen and sees their continuing calibration verification, or CCV, results drifting downward over time, that is a massive red flag. That drift typically means salt particles or solids are slowly building up and choking off the nebulizer tip. So the crucial point is, how do we stop this from happening? Analysts don't have to just be at the mercy of their instruments. There are concrete, actionable steps to prevent these blockages before they ruin a whole batch. First, always filter or centrifuge the samples to remove those hidden solids. Second, just adjust the autosampler probe so it sits a bit higher, avoiding any settled particles at the bottom of the test tube. Third, switch to a nebulizer with a larger internal diameter if you're running really heavy samples. And finally, using an argon humidifier keeps that nebulizer tip moist, which stops salts from crystallizing in the first place. But the nebulizer isn't the only bottleneck here. Let's talk about the torch itself. If an analyst is testing strong matrix samples, like solutions with really high concentrations of dissolved solids, it can actually cause crystalline deposition right inside the injector of the torch. As these crystals build up over the course of a few hours, they partially block the pathway into that 10,000-degree plasma. And the result? A dreaded downward drift in the analytical signal, which completely destroys the test's precision and, you guessed it, forces the analyst to start all over again. Next up in the lineup of common breakdowns is the spray chamber. The spray chamber's whole job is to filter the mist from the nebulizer so only the absolute finest, most consistent droplets make it to the plasma. But if it gets dirty or contaminated from previous samples, it leads to poor drainage, and you can actually see this happen. If the liquid runs down the inside of the chamber as distinct separate droplets instead of a nice, smooth, uniform film, yeah, the chamber is dirty. That uneven drainage directly ruins the precision of your results. The traditional way of catching these issues is totally reactive and, quite frankly, exhausting for scientists. Analysts often rely on quality control solutions that are spaced 30 to 40 minutes apart in their testing sequence. That means waiting in agonizing stress for 40 minutes just to find out a QC failed, meaning the last 40 minutes of testing are completely useless. Compare that to the peace of mind you get from proactive daily testing. Running an automated performance test on the instrument every single morning immediately highlights if there's a loss in sensitivity or a hitting blockage, all before a single real sample is even run. And when a lab uses proper methods and maintains an optimized instrument, like this setup analyzing river water, the results are simply stunning. Just look at the incredibly stable multi-element recoveries hovering right around the 100% mark, consistently over hours and hours of continuous use. No drifting, no sudden drops, and most importantly, no wasted time. And this brilliantly illustrates just how dialed in this machine can be. These are real-world measurements in micrograms per liter. That's parts per billion, folks. Notice the incredible precision. For aluminum in river water, the two instruments detected 12.9 and 14.2 micrograms per liter. It's incredibly consistent. From major elements like calcium all the way down to trace amounts of iron, this proves that when the setup is fully optimized, the ICP-OES is an absolute powerhouse of reliability. To get these flawless results, it really just comes down to perfecting the daily routine. It means running those automated performance tests every morning. It means checking the elasticity of the peristaltic pump tubes daily and always remembering to unclamp them at the end of the shift so they don't stretch out. It means regularly cleaning the pre-optic windows and spray chambers and keeping a really close eye on internal standard ratios so you catch drift early. This meticulous routine, it's exactly what transforms an analyst from a stressed-out firefighter into a confident, efficient protector of our environment. So the next time you fill up a glass of water from the tap, I want you to ask yourself a question. Will you think about the scientists in the background utilizing a 10,000-degree sun-like plasma just to ensure every single drop you drink is safe? The unseen, high-stakes science of trace metal analysis is happening every single day, guarding our food chain and our health. I hope this explainer has given you a newfound appreciation for the critical work being done in environmental labs right now. Keep learning, keep asking questions, and keep exploring the fascinating world of environmental chemistry. I'm Dr. Chem, and until next time, take care.